Alright. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Zakumullah Khair, Faiza. This is so fancy.
Device is ready to pair.
Extremely fancy, Faiza. All pink and all rocking it there. That's why rose gold. Oh my god. But if I spoke, he's better. Oh, here she's better. My voice comes out here nicer than here. Okay, never mind. The voice was kat situ apa. Alright, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barik wa salim. وتعلم وتعليم وذكر وتذكر ونفع وانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث والتمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم ودعاء إلى الهدى ودلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى مع لطف وعافية برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم إنا نسألك علما لدنيا مرسى هاني وهب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك علما لدنيا مرسى هاني وهب يا غني. اللهم إنا نسألك علما لدنيا مرسى هاني وهب يا غني. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. ربنا واجعلنا مسلمين لك ومن ذرية أمة مسلمة لك. قال ربي هب لي من لدنك ذرية طيبة إنك سميع الدعاء. وإذ قال إبراهيم رب اجعل هذا البلد آمنا واجنبني وبني أن نعبد أصناما. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذريتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. ربي أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه وادخلني برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين. ربي أوزعني أن أشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علي وعلى والدي وأن أعمل صالحا ترضاه وأصلح لي في ذريتي إني تبت إليك وإني من المسلمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وبارك وسلم. Mention your intentions, your own individual intentions. Right, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Right, so first apologize for the 2 weeks sudden break. My teacher came, so like busy with whenever your teacher comes, that's it. Throw everything aside and then you just like hit my your teacher, right, until she leaves. Right. Alhamdulillah. Right, so we are on to Tamyeez. Right, Tamyeez. We are entering the Tamyeez. Tamyeez are the ages between, depending on child, right, it can be between 5 to 7 years old. Right, so that's when the age of Tamyeez comes. Tamyeez from the Arabic language, it means mayyaza. Right, mayyaza, that means to differentiate. Right, mumayyiz is the child who is able to differentiate. He's able to differentiate what is correct, what is wrong. Right, they're able to see. Right, so which tells us that before Tamyeez, right, the child she can be told what is right and what is wrong, right, but they might not be able to internalize or understand. Right, what is right and what is wrong. Right, so at the age of Tamyeez, the aql comes in, and then basically discernment comes in, right, and also logical thinking comes in. Right, at Tamyeez. Right, before Tamyeez, they do the most illogical things. Right, things that there are human beings that even after Tamyeez they do illogical things. Right, but children specifically before Tamyeez, right, they what some of the scholars call them, like they have like half a brain, and not half a brain in a way where it's derogatory, but it's more of half a brain, meaning like have mercy on them. Right, they don't know what they're doing. Right, they go according to what their nafs says, but they honestly they can't think further than what is in front of them. Right, so they can't see consequence of the action. Right, they can't see like if you do this something else will happen. They can't see faults and whatsoever. All they can see is happiness or sadness. Right, so you take something away from them, they see sadness, and they start to scream and cry lah. Right, so that is basically, so from there, right, so the reason of why we're learning Tamyeez is to know the non-Tamyeez. Right, when you know the non-Tamyeez, then you will behave with them or you will interact with them with a lot of more mercy. Right, because you see a human being that is full of nafs but doesn't have the mind to control their nafs. Right, and if you have been attending the classes with my teacher, right, she mentions about the mind being the The mind being the minister to the heart. The heart is the king and the mind is the minister. Right? So now you're looking at a child with no minister. Right? So basically the heart, the nafs is raging. Right? It wants whatever it wants to do. But the mind is not there to control. Right? The mind is not there to teach the child what is right and what is wrong and what harms and what does not harm. He has no clue. Right? But the parent basically is the mind for the child up to this age. So at the point of Tamyeez, the mind begins to develop, right, in a way whereby they're able to understand things as they are. Right, so he says here, as قال المؤلف رحمهم الله من كتاب سبل الإقيان شرح بقة الإخوان والرسبيان سبل الإقيان من إمام بسودان ورد السبيان من إمام رملي وكلاهما أخذ من إمام غزالي رضي الله عنهم ورضاهم ونفعنا فيه في الدار إلا أن قال. Right, so whereby he said فليزموه الدرس لقرآني فإنه علم عظيم الشان أيضا والشغل شاغل قلب صبي عن كل ما يجيب نقص الأدب وإن ضار معلم صبياني أو والد بعضا من البلدان فلا يكن مثل النساء يبكي ويشتفع بغيره ويشكي عادة الشجعان ألا يذكروا كل الذي جرى لهم بل يصبروا وراحة الصبيان بعد المكتب أن يأذن الولي لهم باللعب فإنه عند صبا محبوب وقلبه أيضا به يطيب. Alright, so now at the point of Tamyeez, right? So when a child shows Tamyeez between the age of 5 to 7, and we mentioned the signs of Tamyeez that you can see in the child, right? And the strongest sign is that you'll be able to hold a reasonable conversation with this person, with this human being. Basically, he's more adultish right now. And more adultish, you're able to hold a conversation. So the first thing, so now his mind is beginning to develop, and he says, revision, he says that at this point, modesty begins to show in this child. He begins to be modest about his aura. Like before Tamyeez, they might not care, right, about who sees their aura. They might walk around without their clothes. And they don't really care, about removing their clothes. But after Tamyeez, even with the mother, even with the father, they're shy. Right? They begin to feel shy about people looking at them. Right? And that is a good thing. And that is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is on us to preserve that feeling. Right? Preserve that in them. Right? Preserve and make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala constantly. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala preserves the modesty in our children. Right, because we are in a world whereby modesty is being demeaned. Right? People no longer see modesty as a virtuous trait. Whereas modesty is a highly virtuous trait in Islam. It is in fact the trait of Islam. Right? From a hadith, Rasulullah says that every religion has a characteristic, every religion has a trait. And the trait of Islam is modesty. Right? So it is the trait of Islam, modesty. Right? So now the first thing he said, so now when the child is Tamyeez, what do you do with this child? Right, so he's going to Tamyeez, he's thinking, he has his brain developed. The first thing you do is فَلْيُلْزِمُهُ دَرْسَ لِلْقُرْآنِ. Right, start him off on lessons with the Quran. So lessons with the Quran is not to say just memorization or reading the Quran. That it is, memorization and reading the Quran, it is something that is very high, right? But you can start that off earlier. You can, right? But don't be so harsh about it. Right, so for a child of the age of 3, 4, and 5, right, before Tamyeez, 3, 4, and 5, Quran is basically talaqi. Right, talaqi meaning you read, they read back. You read, they read back. You read, they read back. Right, so it's not so much reading the letters itself. Even though if you want to, you can. Right, but there are a lot of articles you can read online, right, or in books of bringing up children, right, about not starting reading too soon. Right, not starting reading too soon, right? Because at the age of before 5, especially before 7, especially, right, that is when their brains are absorbing, right? Very, very fast absorbing brains, right? So just by reciting onto them, they will recite back onto you and they memorize, right? So and sometimes you try to make them read, right? But because their mind has not reached a maturity yet, for some children, especially boys, for some children, especially boys, you might frustrate yourself and frustrate them. Right, in you trying to force the reading too early, right, and then in that happens, then you might put them off of reading. Whereas there is no rush, there is no hard. In Singapore maybe like by primary 1 must know how to read, Right, well, in Singapore, they place this on us. You want to go for the madrasah entrance test lah, you want to go for this test lah, that test lah. Right, you're forced to make your kids learn to read early. Right, but sometimes with girls, maybe it's easier from experience. That girls a bit easier. Right, boys, you might just frustrate them. They get very frustrated sometimes, depending on your child. So you need to also, remember our 4 things to preserve. Right, the preservation of the mind. Right, do not frustrate them out of when it comes to knowledge seeking, because at Tamyeez they are beginning to learn. They begin. Die, finish. It die, finish. 8 hours. Then why he die?
The Bluetooth device is ready to pair.
Okay, try again. Alright. Right, so because at Tamyeez you're going to start lessons or at the desk. Right, so I'm gonna draw the difference at Tamyeez and non-Tamyeez. Right, so if you could draw it in your book, right, Tamyeez and non-Tamyeez. So Tamyeez, you're gonna begin desk work, you're going to begin reading, you're going to begin writing. That is actually the best time for them to start. If you start it prematurely, right, I'm not saying all the time, sometimes. If you, or maybe most of the times, you start it prematurely, you might kill the light of learning in the heart of the child, right? Because it's premature, right? They're too young. Their mind is not able to grasp concepts yet, right? So you try reading and writing and whatever too early, right? And I know some people, at 3 years old, you're drilling your child for spelling. You're drilling your child for, the child is 3. He's just 3, 4. Let him play. Right, before 7, play. When it comes to Quran, recite back. Recite back. Can have it to be fun. Right, it can be a game. Yeah, you can have like obstacle course. Recite one ayat. Whatever. They're below 7. Below 7, don't kill the light of learning. Don't. That's the worst thing you could do. Is to kill the light of learning. And in fact, if you wait enough, and they enter Tamyeez, their learning to read will be very fast. Very fast they will grab it. Right? Because the mind is ready. The mind is mature enough to grasp reading. Right? That is a secret between behind this, what he's saying here. At Tamyeez, then give them the lessons in the Quran. Because before that, you're going to frustrate. You're going to frustrate them, you're going to frustrate yourself. Right? So, reading, writing, all of that. If you read a lot of Sheikh Hamza's sister, right, Elizabeth Henson, she converted Islam, she's a Muslim, right? But she writes a lot about education and about early education also. And she is very strong, very strong believer, right, in not forcing reading until the child is ready, right? Because especially boys, right? Not forcing reading until the child is ready, so that you don't kill the light of loving to read, right? Loving to read, right? And when they are ready, they will read so fast, right? You will not even have any worry. Like, how come she's 5 and she can't read, or she's 6 and she can't read? Right? It's okay, it's fine. Right? How many kids? My mother herself, right? 7 of us. All of us, she did not start us off on reading until age of 7. All of us. Right? She is somebody she is very much against the drilling of children below 7. She's very against that. No, but now we have drill below age of 7. For her, no. Age of 0 to 7, play, akhlaq, adab, right? And also talqin. That means she recite back. Right? Up surah duha if you want, right? But depending on how far you want to go with your child, right? You can pace yourself, right? But if after surah duha you can do one surah duha, right? She's not. But that's my mother. And also I spoke to some of the ustazas also. My sister Hababa Mariam, she herself said so that the drilling of Quran on the children, right, prematurely, right, you can turn them off of the Quran. So there are people like by the age of 7 must hafal the first juz, second juz, third juz, fourth juz, drill. You can do so. You can, and it can happen. It can. Right, but then now what you have done is that you have placed the Quran on the child who has memorized the Quran now, and for life they cannot forget. There is Quran, Quran, the moment you memorize, for life. For life. The Quran is basically a commitment for life. Right, so my teacher, she said that, as parents, you make them memorize what they need to memorize, or just Amma, from Surah Duha onwards, if you want. And then the surahs that you read every day, Surah Yasin, Surah Waqi'ah, Surah Muluk, right, is a daily repetition. But to memorize the Quran, let it come from themselves. Right? Let it come from themselves. Right? Even my teacher, she was telling me that she pushed her son on memorizing the Quran, and he memorized the whole Quran. But now that he is old, he has left it. Not left it, but in a way, but basically he's too busy. He's too busy to do his muraja, too busy to do his revision, and that becomes a sin on him. It's a sin, right? You memorize and you don't revise. It's a sin, right? So sometimes you think you're helping them out by making them memorize early, but you have to see, do they want to take this affair on? Because memorization is not wajib. It's a very high thing. I'm saying it's a very, very high thing, right? To memorize the Quran, but it is not wajib. So, but to revise is wajib. Revising the Quran is wajib the moment you have memorized, right? So you as a parent, you have to see what are you putting your child on, right? If you can, let it be until 7. If they want to memorize, urge. You be the encouragement, but you don't force, right? If they want to stop, let them stop, but remind them, the more you memorize, whatever you memorize, you must revise, you must revise, you must revise. So if you want to be a support system for your child who wants to memorize at the age of 7 and above, age of below 7 for me, you know, from what I learned from my teachers and also my own personal opinion is that below age of 7, just the short surahs, Surah Duha onwards, and then surahs that you read daily. Just that below age of 7. Do not force more than that. Right? Because even the whole Juz Amma, you might want to, but if you do so, right, if you force the Quran on your child, you force the Quran on your child, if you do so, then it has to be part of your daily routine as a family to revise. If you can do so, maybe your husband is someone who memorizes, or you are someone who memorizes, right? Then you can do so. That is part of the family routine that daily between Maghrib and Isha we revise our Quran. Then you can do so, right? But if you are not somebody who does that, right, and then you're gonna force them to memorize, right, they're gonna leave it. Right? It's discipline. For me personally, and speaking from my own personal experience, memorizing is discipline. Discipline. And for me, when I am struggling, right, with holding on to my muraja'ah, with holding on to my revision, when I'm feeling the struggle and the stress, right, of every day I must revise, every day I must revise, every day I must revise, because dosa on me, right, having memorized part of the Quran, right. So that is the first thing. Okay. So if you have, before and after Tamyeez, yeah.
They memorize and they don't revise, but if you ask them, they can recite properly. Means they know it already. So
That means they memorized. Like for example, like Surah Ikhlas, you don't have to revise Surah Ikhlas. But that's why they say keep it to short surahs. Very rare that you have memorized a long surah that without revision you memorize it forever. Very rare. Even the ulama, they know. You leave the Quran for a day, you lose it. Right? Even for me, I used to be able to recite Surah Baqarah from start to end one go, without any stop. Now I can't. I need to revise. Right? Because I left it for a while. I came back. Last. Right, so it is basically the moment you leave it begins to rust. Straight away it begins to rust. Right, so unless you are someone alim like Imam Shafi'i or whatsoever, you can never forget anything, but very few of us are of that caliber nowadays. Alright, so before Tamyeez, Alright, and Tamyeez. Right, so first thing about the Quran, about the Quran. Before Tamyeez is talaqin, that means recite. Follow. Recite and follow. And even then, don't stress them out. Right, the worst thing you could do is to put them off the Quran at a young age. Don't do that. And if possible, you be the one who do that. If your reciting is okay, right, not terrible or whatsoever, right, if you're fine, or get someone that you trust, right, because love of the Quran is remember before Tamyeez is all about love. It's all about love, about aqidah, right? So recite and follow, and then stories. And when it comes to the Quran stories, recite and follow, so they understand that what you're reading here, right, it's not just words or sounds that I'm making. No, it's a story. right? Or there are lessons here. So make it live, bring it alive to them. Before, and according to their age, they're 5 years old, 6 years old, whatever, by their age, right? You bring it alive to them. Right? After Tamyeez, right, that is when you begin to read. Right? Then we sit down and read the letters. Right? So Tamyeez happens anywhere between 5 to 7. Right? Anywhere, depending on your child, 5 to 7. So now they're going to sit down and they're going to read the Quran. Right? Of course, if you're teaching them Arabic, then the reading of the Quran comes with meaning. Right? As how you read English. Right? If you are teaching them Arabic. Right? So and for them, what they mean here, for them, of course, they're Arabs. Right? So for them, Dars al-Quran is not just ngaji. It's not just ngaji. It is actually tafsir also. Right? So reading of the Quran, right, is with meaning. Did I told you?
I don't understand.
I said
I think it just keeps switching on this one. I don't know why.
it's okay.
I can hear you.
You can hear me, right? Huh?
Your voice is
Deteriorating. Can you make dua for me? So reading, right? With service now at Tamyeez, you begin the muqaddam. If you're doing muqaddam, if you're doing iqra, do iqra. If you're doing whatever burhan. There are a lot of different books that you can use, depending on your child. Right? Start with the reading and meaning. Never go into it without the meaning. Right? Do the meaning because you want them to love the Quran. Right? At the end of the day, it's about loving the Quran and following the Quran. The Quran was sent down for what? Right? It was sent out as a guide for all human beings. Right? Our society has come to a point whereby the Quran is something that is on the lips, right? And it's left as to what's the point of the Quran? What's the reason why it was sent down? It was sent down to be a guide, right? So from the beginning, have the connection, right? Make it your prime purpose. Your priority over everything is your child's connection and relationship with this Quran above everything. Right? I'm not even talking about English, math, science yet. That one later. Right? The first thing they say, wa in bada فَيُلْزِمُهُ دَرْسَ لِلْقُرْآنِ فَإِنَّهُ عَلْمٌ عَظِيمُ شَأْنِ أيضا وشغل شاغل قلب صبي عن كل ما يجيب نقص الآداب. Right? So first thing at Tamyeez, make them occupied with the Quran. Not a small part of the day. I have lessons of the Quran in the day. So one part is reading the Quran. Another part is stories in the Quran. Another part is, lessons or maybe instructions from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran. Right? So throughout the day, the Quran comes to the human being. Right? In Tarim, it's 5 times a day after every prayer. Right? The Quran is a lesson in the Quran 5 times a day. So if you want, one part is for memorization. One lesson is for reading. One lesson is for maybe tajweed if you want. Right? And then one is for tafsir if you want. Right? And one is for stories if you want. Right? So basically have the Quran, the knowledge of the Quran is more than just reading. Right? It's entire, banquet of it's entire, ma'idah. It's a whole banquet of knowledge in the Quran. So it says, for surely this knowledge, it is a great knowledge. Right? And you are basically, you're denying your child, it's of the rights of the child that you teach them the Quran. It's the rights of the child that you teach them the Quran. It's really, we're so far from this lah. It's so far, right? That people no longer read the Quran, nor appreciate, nor understand, and that is basically the source of all, all weakness in the ummah, that we have left the Quran. Right? And Rasulullah SAW will say on the day of judgment in Surah Furqan, Rasulullah SAW says to Allah subhanahu wa taala on the day of judgment, "Oh my Lord, for surely my people they have taken this Quran to be something abandoned." Right? In the Quran, Allah quotes Rasulullah SAW on the day of judgment. He will complain to Allah that I strove so hard to bring this Quran to my people, and now what have they done? They have shelved it. Literally, we have shelved the Quran, right? And nobody goes with the Quran anymore. We're too busy for the Quran. And Habib, then he was saying, how can somebody ever say you're too busy for the Quran? How can you even say that? Right? It's as if you don't understand what is life. Right? For you to say you are too busy for the Quran, you don't understand what is blessing, and you don't understand what is life. That's it. Right? For you to say you're too busy for the Quran. Somebody says, I am doing too much da'wah, I'm doing too many classes, I have no time for the Quran. He says, then you don't understand what is da'wah. Right? You have to be grounded in the Quran before you speak to the people. Right? What are you talking about? Right? You want to bring your child up on this religion and you have no Quran in your life, then what are you talking about? Right? Are you serious? Are you joking? Right? Subhanallah. So they're very firm and very strong, and they're shocked. Right, when I tell them, like my teacher that she was here, I told her how much Quran we actually read. She was shocked. She's like, that's it. Like this one ayin, for example, for most of us, one ayin, 2 ayins a day. They read, she reads 5 juz a day. Right, 5 juz a day before subuh. Right, these are people. So they're shocked at our state. How far? Subhanallah. But bit by bit, she's saying, bit by bit. Okay, have mercy on the people. Have mercy on the bit by bit, at least a page. Right, and place it in your child's tertib, your child's daily routine. Have some Quran. Right, so even if your child is in secular school, right, and they're finding it difficult to keep up with the Quran in secular school, right, but have it a priority before they do their homework. Before homework, Quran. Right, when I was in primary school, when we came out of primary school, straight away, the first thing we did after we changed our clothes and we showered was I would sit with my grandmother and read Quran. First thing at Zohor time. Then we come back around primary school at 2 o'clock. Come back, right? Have lunch, change your clothes, bathe. My grandmother will be sitting there waiting. So one by one, each of us will come and read the Quran. Before Asr, all of us are done. That's it. Put it in the schedule of your child. Right. So Tamyeez, right? So before Tamyeez, recite and follow, right? And of course, by that you correct their pronunciation. Right, because you don't want to, of course, as much as you can, because there's still pelat at this age. Still the pelatness comes out. But as far as you can, correct pronunciation, but this will continue till that side. Right, Tamyeez, right? When they learn to pronounce things well, right, make sure the pronunciation is correct, right? And if you yourself, you can't pronounce letters well, and then get someone who does. Get a teacher that you can trust, who can instill in them love for the Quran. Right, so it says, Aidan wa shughlu shaghilun kalbasabi. Right, and this Quran, right, it will occupy the heart of the child. Right, it's a light. You are placing a very strong light in this child's life, because now he's at Tamyeez. He has haya. He has shyness inside of him, right? And now his mind is expanding, and he's beginning to understand things in where they are. What do? The Quran is brought in to guide this mind. That's why the Quran is being brought in. The Quran is being brought in to preserve the modesty and to guide the mind of the child as he grows older. Because within a few years, he's going to reach puberty. Like, say for example, at 7, Tamyeez, that's 7. 2 years, puberty. Right, 9, you can reach puberty at 9. Right, it's not a long time, It's not a long time at all. Right, before you know your child is in puberty, khalas. Right, everything that the child does is counted. Right, the religion makes it that way. Puberty that's the line. You have these few years from 0 to 9 or 0 to 12 for most women. For men, maybe 13. This number of years, get your act together, right? And then you begin to be accounted for all that you do. Right? Subhanallah. Right. So, and it's mentioned that what's it, Muhammad? Right. There was mentioned a story, right, of a man whose wife was pregnant, right, with his child, right, and never to underestimate the lessons in the Quran, right? So. So a man, his wife was pregnant when he was, and he passed away when she was pregnant, right? And this man, he was known to be a sinner, right? Somebody who was steeped in sin. So when his wife gave birth, right? When the wife gave birth, right? This man who he already passed away, right? There was a saint in the area, right? Who whenever he goes past the grave of the man, right? He will always hear the man being punished in the grave. Right, they will always sense that this is grave, that there's somebody being punished in this grave. So after 7 years, after 7 years, this saint man passed the grave, and he did not hear the same sounds he used to hear when he passed by his grave. Right, so then he asked the man, what has happened? Right, the person on the grave, what has happened? How come I don't hear the same punishments? Right, and then he said that, well, today my child turned 7 years old, right, and my wife has brought him to learn the Quran. Right, when he learned the Quran, he said, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allah said, how can I punish a person whose son is declaring my mercy? Right, and from there the person was forgiven by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right, so, and of course, you being the first one to teach them the Quran. Right, therefore from there, their entire lives, every single part of the Quran that they recite goes back to you. Right, so how lucky are you? Right, so the Fatiha, every day they read the Fatiha for their prayers, the reward goes back to who? Goes back to you. Right, so teachers who teach the Quran, they get a lot of reward. So as parents over your own child, the Fatiha at least you take. At least you choke the Fatiha for yourself, and you teach them the Fatiha, not anybody else. Teach them the Fatiha, right? So Fatiha from on your on your child, right? And it says that at this age, right, this is specifically, they are memorizing everything. They are memorizing everything, right? That's why the ulama, they don't bother the kids of this age with reading yet. Reading can be done later. It can be done later. This is the age whereby you're going to focus on memorize. Right? All like Arabic words, Quranic ayats, hadith, du'as, Asma'ul Husna, the 40 sifat, 20 sifat Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala, all. Whoever you want them to memorize lah, right, at this age. Right? Then reading, right? And reading with meaning. Right? So, and then he says here, right? So, وَعَنْ كُلِّ مَا يُجِيبُ نَقْصَ الْأَدَبِ, right? So, with the Quran, right, being a very big part of their lives, right, that will shape them in their adab. Like stronger and stronger by the day, they will be shaped in their adab, right, in the lights. But it has I hope you understand that this is really taking by the hand. Right? It's not that you just dump them in the ngaji class, khalas, finish. Don't do that. Right? You're not going to develop anything with them in the Quran. Right? But it has to be constant talk, right? Constant guidance, constant love from yourself. Right? They need to be able to see this in you. Right? Love, guidance, talk, right, from yourself, right, about the Quran. Right, so Uncle lima yujibu naqsal adabi. Like the Quran will occupy them from anything that will be destroying their adab, destroying their innermost, their behavior. And here Hababa, she mentioned that no, subhanallah, at this age, right, how many of us you occupy your kids with cartoons, you occupy your kids with all of this, of these films that destroy their adab. Right? It destroys the adab, a lot of these things. And at most, okay, even if you say, okay, cartoon, harmless, there's no romance scene whatsoever, is harmless, kan? Like, at most, it makes them forget about Allah Subhanahu Wa Ta'ala. It makes them, heedless. Right? All their mind is all about the cartoon, right? What's going to happen and who's going to happen and whatever lah. Right? So you're doing them a big disfavor by occupying their mind and their heart by something that is false. Right? Even if it's not negative, right, but it is false. It's not true. Right, so occupy them with what is true. Right, so and now there's all kinds of things that you can do, like the Quran. There are books about the Quran, and stories in the Quran, hadith. And there's a lot of medium that you can tap on, right? That you can occupy. And one of the Habaib, he said that he does not believe that a child needs to have any gadgets throughout the week. He does not believe that at all. It's like the child, they say we grew up without gadgets. Right, so who's to say that now we need gadgets? So he's like, no, it's impossible. Right, don't say that it's impossible. It's definitely you don't need any gadgets at all, as long as you don't introduce them. The moment you have introduced them, that's when it gets hard. Right, because now they're going to be demanding it. Right, so but if you can, wean it off, and they will occupy themselves with the books. Have a set of books, because this is the age whereby they learn how to read. So let them occupy their minds, right, with all of these good things. Right. So here, أي أنه إذا حصل تمييز بلغ سنه أول ما ينبغي أن يلزمه الولي أن يشتغل يتعلم بتعلم القرآن ودرسه. وقال حجة الغزالي رضي الله تعالى عنه ينبغي أن يشتغل في المكتب بتعليم القرآن وبأحاديث الأخيار والحكايات الأبرار وأحوالهم لينغرس حب الصالحين في قلبه ويحفظ من الأشعار التي فيها ذكر العشق وأهله. So Imam Ghazali, he says here, so at this point of Tamyeez, first and foremost, occupy them with the Quran. Book ways. Tamyeez, occupy them reading the Quran. Right? And also the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There are books you can find, right? Hadith for children, right? Hadith and stories of the Prophet Sirah. Right? Occupy them with that. And then he says, and also the stories of the righteous, right? Hikayat al-abrar, right? So the stories of the righteous, the pious of the past, right? So that you can engrave in them the love for the Prophet, the love for the Quran, and the love for the pious, right? And when they have love in their hearts, that is when they will be guided. I remember at the beginning of the lesson that the whole point of you bringing up children is what? To guide them. Where? To the next world. Right, that is the whole point of this affair of children, right? To develop, to bring up the next generation. So don't be so focused, on their dreams and my aspirations for them and whatsoever of this world. No, right? You look at them as human beings that need to be guided to Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. That's all they are. They're human beings that came from you. Right? Of course, they came from you, right? Through your own womb, right? But what are you there for? To guide them to the light, right? To Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. And if you can do that, inshallah, then there is success. And if you can't do that, then may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us and our children, right? To guide all of us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So, and he says, and here Imam Ghazali says, and protect them from poetry. Right? Poetry meaning songs. Right? Songs. Protect them. What songs? He said songs that mention love and passion. That means not good nasyid songs basically, right? All the songs of today, right? The pop songs, all this rock music, whatever. Kids at the age of in primary school now, they're all about the radio, right? Nonsense on the radio, right? And they are singing songs about, and I have heard kids at the age of 7, right, 8 years old, singing songs that is all sexual in nature, and they have no idea what they're singing. They're just singing all of these things, and subhanAllah, in the past, in primary school, they sing like the most crude, very crude songs that is on the radio. They're singing it because it's catchy. Right? But what are they singing? They sing all about zina. All the words is all zina. Right? And then what are we doing? Letting them hear all these songs. Like, what kind of, are we even focusing or thinking? Our parents, right? or ourselves, as parents, are we focusing on what are they singing? Right? So songs out. No way. Radio out. Nothing. Even Malay songs, whatever, out. Like, you want nasyid. Like good Islamic songs, nasyid if you want. Basically nasyid. I won't even say anything else. Right? I mean, of course there are good songs out there. I don't know what they are. Right? But basically nasyid. Oh, here's the other stuff. But nasheeds are nasheeds. Nasheeds and
Arabic singers singing Arabic songs. But I don't think it's Arabic song.
Okay, Arabic singers are not any much better than as long as they're not. No, Arabic is not, specifically for Islam. I mean, Islam has a lot of Arabic in it, but the Arabs, they have all kind of nonsense songs out there. Nonsense, their songs. Yeah, so don't think, it's Arabic, it's good. No, they have a lot of pop singers, right, in the Arab world. Allahu Alam. Right, but basically, Islamic songs, right, if you already have to. Right, Imam Ghazali's time already, he was saying. His time already, he was saying, protect your children from all of this poetry, right, all of these songs that destroy the heart. Right, it brings darkness to the heart. Then you wonder, why are they so disobedient? Right, but you keep feeding them the words of the disobedient. Right, feed them words of those who are pure. And if you can, right, stick to words of the awliya, of the scholars, right, of the saints. Imam al-Haddad has a lot of songs, right, from himself. Right, the awliya, they have their own nasheeds that they write, right, out of their love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, out of love for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Because when they write their songs about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, right, it's a lot of intention and dua for the ones who read these songs. Right, so like for example, Qad Kafani, right, Al-Murabbi, the Imam al-Haddad song. Imam al-Haddad wrote that song saying that whoever has a need, right, especially a spiritual need, you read that and it will be fulfilled. Right, so these are things that this our ulama, they have written for us. Right, so for us to hold on, and we can do it. Right, and then if you want to have more fun for them, then let them learn the daf, play the daf if they want. Because they are children. They're children. Right, you don't want to be so hard on them. And he will speak about it later on. Don't have them always learning. Right, have them play. They're still children. Right, they have them have enjoyment time. Have them learn healthy hobbies. Right, of sewing, knitting if they want, playing daf, going out there, cycling, whatever. Right, have healthy lifestyle for your children. Right. And then he says, what in okay, so and then he says, so and then now he says here, right, so al-ghina, I just saw one thing that I wrote here from Hababa. You want to hear? He says, Al-ghina ra'du zina. Karra'adu yuqaddimu al-matar. Al-ghina yuqaddimu zina. Understood that? It's a very strong word. Hababa said, and it's from the scholars lah. They say that songs, and I'm talking about not songs, not nasheed, songs. They are the thunder of fornication. Thunder of fornication. Just like fornication comes before the rain. It's a fornication. Just like thunder comes before the rain, songs come before fornication. And if you go into, Sheikh Hamza has a talk, can't remember what is it called right now, right? But he talks about songs, and that's why the scholars have a debate about songs, haram or halal, right? Because songs have they place a human being into a trance. Right? The human being goes into a trance when it comes to songs. It incites feelings, emotion. It incites passion in a human being. It messes with your mind. Right? So the ulama in the past, when songs came about, they discuss, is this haram or halal? Right? Songs. Because songs can really affect the human being. And it can put you into a state whereby you don't do as you would do without the songs. So we don't know how messed up we are in this world, that pop songs are everywhere. Right? And these pop songs, don't think that they're doing it just for leisure or for their business. No. All of these things are the tools of the devil, right, to destroy the human being and even destroy your own khushu' in your prayer. When you enter your prayer and your mind is on some jingle out there. Right? Subhanallah. So he says that the songs that they are the beginning. Right? They are what pushes you towards zina. Right? So, songs and zina. Right? Yeah. And this is what the ulama, they say, and they have not heard our songs. Our songs blatantly aggrandize zina. Right? It's a blatant aggrandization of zina. Right? In the past, it's not so blatant. It's just about love and whatsoever. Even then, they say already, it will bring you to zina. Songs today, definitely. I won't even say, about the khilaf and whatsoever. Khilaf, in nasheeds, okay, but in clear, non-beneficial songs, there is no difference of opinion at all. Right? So if you have not cleansed your house or your lives of this kind of rubbish songs, then please do so. Right? Please do so. It's about time lah. It's about time to cleanse. My mother, when we grew up, she never allowed us to on the radio, ever. Ever. No radio in the house. If she had her way, there'd be no TV in the house. My father wanted TV in the house. But if she had her way, no TV in the house, at least she got her way with no radio in the house. Radio only for azan. That's it, azan. And azan finished, dua finished, off. Right, so in school, my friends will be singing all kinds of songs from the radio stations. I have no idea what they are. No clue, blur. Because my mother had no radio in the house. So even though when we grew up, and some of us, we would be influenced by our friends outside, and they have songs, and we'll be influenced. But when we went home, we knew no radio. Right? So at least even if outside, if we were, going wayward with our songs, right, the home itself, my mother did not allow it. It was not allowed. It was unheard of in the home. So eventually, all of us, even though in our teenage years, we want to think what are these things, that we try and see our friends got this man lah, got Walkman lah, got whatever, and we have nothing of that. right? And at first, we were interested, and I would say even myself, I was interested in what my friends were doing and what they were listening to, the songs that they had in their ears. But after a while, you see that what my mother was doing, all of my siblings, we moved towards that. Right? So we went out for a while and came back. Right? So what my mother was doing was correct. Right? No songs in the house. Right? But she would play nasheeds in the car, in the house. Right? For us to improve our Malay. Our Malay was so horrible. So she would get Raihan lah, Rabani lah, just so that our Malay would improve. And I even memorized the nasheed lines and put it in my karangan, because they have all kinds of indah kenapa benda kan. All the beautiful kata berbunga kan, it's all there, right? So I'll put it all in my karangan. So I got my A2, is it? So I got my A2 my Malay. I can't even speak Malay now. Subhanallah. Right. Al-ghina ra'dul zina. Kal-ra'du yuqaddimul matar. Al-ghina yuqaddimul zina. In English, Al-ghina, right? Singing or songs it is the thunder of fornication. Just like thunder comes before the rain, songs come before fornication. Right. So and she said, this is Hawabano said, right, the one who always listens to songs, right? And whenever I say songs, I'm not talking about nasheeds. Okay, I hope I don't have to explain that anymore. When I'm talking about songs, I'm talking about songs that have no benefit in this religion whatsoever, right? So she says that those who listen to songs, and they do have their Arabic songs, so they know what I'm talking about, right? The songs, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala stuffs his ears with hot charcoal. Right? Those who listen to songs, it's as if, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will stuff their ears with hot charcoal from the hellfire. Right? Your ears. Right? So protect, right? Don't allow them to have all these tunes enter your heart, enters your prayer, enters your life. Right? So your children from the very beginning, right? No songs. And in fact, if you can, explain to them why no songs. Right? Why don't we hear all these pop songs all the time? Why do other people do it? Because we are in an age of songs. Right? Pop songs have been going on for the past decades. Since we were young, they began. Disney songs, right? In your ears, right? Subhanallah. And Disney is not innocent. I hope you all know that. Disney is out to destroy children. Right? They're not innocent, whatever. They're out to pervert. They're a group of perverts. They're out to pervert our children. Right? Seriously, we don't trust anyone except Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the ulama. Everyone besides that, you don't trust what they're feeding your children, especially the TV. Why would we trust the TV, kan? But we do in our behavior, we trust the TV. Right, as to what he's saying. There's a story once, I can't remember where. I read it online on an email. And he wrote, the guy who wrote it, I wrote it in a way like a guest came to our house one day. Right? And this guest, he had all kinds of stories to tell us. And at first we were all so amazed by his stories, and we'll sit around him for hours and hours and hours hearing his stories. Right? But sometimes this guest, right, he overdoes it. Right? He tells us stories that makes my mother frown, or makes my father say to him to keep quiet. Right? So it's a very nice email. At the end of the entire email, like, the guest is a TV. Right? Because at the end of the day, that we cannot. He wrote at the end of the email of his story. So this guest refused to leave, and we will fight over the guest. Right? Who will please the guest more? Right? It will cause rift in the family. Right? So all kinds of things, All and at the end of the entire story, the guest was a TV. Right? That was brought into the homes. And Sheikh Hamza, he said that the Jews, the real Jews, who are very strong, they have no TV in their home. They have no TV in their home because they know, right, it's a sewage. Right? It brings in all kinds of filth into the home. Right? So if you can control, now we have screens. Right? So screens, if you want, you can control, right, what is being shown. Right? But if you don't have to show, you don't show. Right? Have it in books, let them imagine. Right? That is better for their mind. Right? To be able to, it makes their mind sharper when they read books and they imagine. Right? It makes them much sharper than to see a picture, right, and you're given everything. Right? It actually weakens the mind. Right? As a teacher for myself, I'm a maths teacher by profession. Right? Our kids, I don't know whether it's only my own observation or even my brothers say the same thing. Kids today are so slow in mathematics. They are so slow. We were not that slow when we were that age. Cannot we lah. I mean, like, subhanallah, people so slow. You'll be shocked how slow our kids are in mathematics nowadays. We used to do mental sums when we were in primary school, kan? And you can do mental sums like that. They can't anymore. What's happened to their brains? Right? They can't add things without a calculator anymore. Right? Subhanallah, it's true. You are shocked. I have the answer in my head right now, and they're like calculating the calculator. It's in my mind. Right? Where is the sharpness of our mind? Right? And mathematics, also, not that I'm proposing mathematics, but mathematics, it does develop a critical mind in a human being. So not just mathematics, but when you read stuff and you read articles and you go into books and you deepen in your knowledge, the mathematical mind is a critical mind. Right? So you're able to see the truth and go deep into it. Right? There's a training right, of the mind. So then you're able to see the Quran and tafsir and the nahu and the grammar and whatsoever. You see the beauty come out. Right? And you see how genius how ingenious the Quran is. By from a mind that is able to think deeply. But our education has caused our mind to be, stumped, in a way. That's the preservation of mind, one of our 4 preservations, preservation of mind, to keep the mind sharp, right? So screens out, right? Try to get them to imagine stories. Now, when you read, I don't know how many of you here are teachers, you read their compos No imagination, zero. Well, I used to write better compos when I was that age. Right? No, nothing. No imagination whatsoever in their compositions. What has happened? Because they're being fed. They don't have to imagine anymore. Right? Subhanallah. Right? So then Imam Ghazali says here, right? وَإِنْ ضَرَبْ مُعَلِّمًا سِبْيَانِي أَوَالِدٌ بَعْضًا مِنَ الْوِلْدَانِ فَلَا يَكُنْ مِثْلَ نِسَاءِ يَبْكِي وَيَشْتَفِعْ بِغَيْرِهِ وَيَشْكِي. Alright, so here, right, Imam Ghazali goes on, he says that. So now, second part, now your Tamyeez above the age of 7. So he says, and if a teacher was to hit the child, right, so now at the age of 7, most people will send their child out to school. Right, most people at the age of 7, your child goes up to school. Right, so if a teacher hits a child, right, or another parent hits a child, right, hit not saying, like really rembat or whatsoever, no, right, but basically punish. Right, so if a child is being punished by a teacher or another parent, right, what do you do? What is the correct way of handling this? Right, so first and foremost, right, with the child there is a way, and with the adult there is a way, right, but you don't handle the adult in front of the child, and that is very important. Don't handle the adult, nor belittle the adult, nor undermine the authority of the adult in front of the child, because a child is a child, adult is adult. Right? If let's say, for example, a very clear example, your mother or your sister or your brother scold your child, right? A child comes to you, cries, right, because of what his uncle has said to him. Right? It happens all the time, right? Your own sibling, your own parents, your in-laws, someone, right? They scold a child in a very harsh way that you would not have done it that way, right? But because they are them, right? They scold a child in that way. What do you do? Right? What you do is that with the child, you ask them first what happened. Right? Don't straight away say your uncle is terrible, your uncle is wrong, your uncle is too harsh, your uncle is what. Don't do that. Don't do that to the child. First ask the child what has happened. Right? That means at this age, teaching them responsibility for their actions. Right? Responsibility for their actions. Right? Our day, when the child comes to us to complain to us about their teacher, straight away we assume, right, what the child says is correct, and then we scold the teacher, or sometimes we even criticize the teacher in front of the child. So what you are doing is that you are undermining the authority of the teacher. Right? Of course, the child needs to understand. The parent later on, right, the adult later on, you handle behind the child. Right? Not in front of the child, you handle the adult. Okay? So understand, don't rush into things. So when a child comes to you to complain, so وَإِنْ ضَرَبْ مُعَلِّمُ سِبْيَانِ أَوَالِدٌ بَعْضًا مِنَ الْوِلْدَانِ فَلَا يَكُنْ مِثْلَ نِسَاءِ يَبْكِي وَيَشْتَفِعْ بِغَيْرِهِ وَيَشْكِي. Right, so فَعَادَةُ الشُّجْعَانِ أَلَّا يَذْكُرُوا كُلَّ الَّذِي جَرَى لَهُمْ بَلْ يَصْبِرُوا. Right, so these 3 lines, right, 3 lines here is to teach the child first thing responsibility. I'll go into the meanings in a while. And to teach the child how to be strong emotionally. Remember emotional preservation. Right, emotional preservation of the child. To be strong emotionally. So if somebody scolds you, or hits you, or whatever, something bad happens, right? And he comes to you and complains. Right? First thing you do, teach him how to see his fault in it. That means teach him, what did you do? Because for sure you must have done something. Nobody is crazy going around scolding anybody else. They might even do that. But most people scold for a reason. They might be excessive in their scolding. That could have happened. But there was a reason what triggered them off in the first place. So with your child, what are you going to teach them? Self-blame first. Self-blame is a trait. It's a trait, right? It's a trait that is lost. Self-blame, what do you do? And all of the prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, all of them, you will see them one by one, right? They will always reflect on themselves. Prophets, self-blaming. You see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, right, when he was pelted at Ta'if and he ran away, and he is the Prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and all he wanted to do was to go there and preach the religion. What did he say after that? Oh Allah, I complain to you my weakness and how low I am in station in the eyes of people. He complained it to Allah, saying that, oh Allah, I know it's because I am weak. I am weak. And it's because I'm not anybody. I'm a nobody with the people. They say they don't take my words for, seriously, because I'm a nobody. And that is a lesson for us. Right? It's a lesson in humility. It's a lesson that, and he as a prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is teaching us that when something wrong happens, first thing you do, reflect. Reflect on yourself. What do you do wrong? Right? And the ulama of the past, right, when they see, of their children, those who go wayward, right, those who would, go off the path, they will reflect on themselves. What did I do wrong? Right? They will think to themselves, did I leave my tahajjud that day? Did I forget my sunnah that day? What did I leave? What? So they will think for themselves that because of my behavior, now my child is going the other way. Right? And there is a story of a person that he went for travels. And he went traveling, right? And on his travel, he saw a very beautiful woman. Right? He saw a very beautiful woman on his travels, right? So he followed her. The story that Hababa tells, right? He followed her, right? And when she was standing there, he went up to her, kissed her on the cheek, and ran away. This guy, and he went up to her, kissed her on the cheek, and ran away. Then he came back to his hometown. So he's on his travels. He came back to his hometown, and then when he went to his house, right, his wife said, "Do you know that day, in his home, he's in a different town, his hometown, right? Now he's back in his hometown. That day, our daughter was walking on the street, and a random man came up, kissed her on the cheek, and ran away." Right? Basically, the story was that he did something to someone else. Someone did something to his daughter. So they always see it that way. They always see that it's your fault, it's your doing, it's your... And that is a trait. It is a trait. We have lost this trait, right, of first self-blame. Right? So in marriage, in with your parent, everything in life, first thing, self-blame. What did I do wrong? Right? So that's what he's saying here. So when they come to you to complain, ask them, what did you do? Tell me what you did exactly. Right? Because your uncle is not a crazy man. Right? If he scolded you, that's the reason. What do you do? Right? What did you do? So that's the first thing. Then what he did, you correct it. Right? If he is crying, right? If he's crying because and he's Tamyeez, I'm not talking about before 7, Before 7 they cry all the time. Right? After 7, right? They come to you crying about don't know what. Right? And then tell them, don't cry. Right? Well, how does crying help you? And my mother, when the whole time I was growing up, same thing. My brothers would always call us names. But that is their role in life, Role in life. Right? To call their sisters names, right? And then make them cry, right? So I remember it's very strongly etched in my mind. My brother always call me this name they made up, right? And then I'll get upset and I'll cry. And I'll complain to my mother. And they call me, don't know what they call me. And then my mother turned to me, she said, "Are you there?" And I said, "No." "Then why you cry?" Right? I was 7 or 8. I still remember that lesson. Why you cry? Right? You're not that. Why you bothered? Right? Let them call you whatever they want to call you. Khalas. Right? So that's what he's saying here. Don't cry. I said, don't cry like woman. He says here. I said, "Wala yakun misla nisa'i yabki." Don't be like woman and cry all the time. But you woman, don't cry all the time. وَيَشْتَفِئْ بِغَيْرِهِ وَيَشْكِي. Right? Don't always get somebody else to intercede for you with somebody else. Or complain. Right? This starts from Tamyeez, Starts from Tamyeez. Right? The behavior of self-blame. Right? The behavior of not complaining about everything that happens to you. He says here, right? Don't let them complain about everything that strikes them. That's a very bad behavior. It's bad adab with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also. Things happen. Khalas, let it go. Finish. Right? Stop complaining about it. Dah. That's normal. This one, before Tamyeez, there will be all the reporting, right, happening. There will be... No, you can tell her, remind her, right? But after Tamyeez, more firm. Right? But before Tamyeez, they're always complaining. Before Tamyeez, it's just complain. He do that. He do this. He beat me. He don't know why he take my toy. But if you can, try to apply it on them also. If they are 5, 4. Yeah, you can start. can start by slowly telling them that not everything you must complain about, right? If you can handle it yourself, but don't beat your sister. Right? Handle myself, I beat her back. Right? But I mean, also guide them in thinking what was the wrong that happened here. But before Tamyeez, it's difficult for them to make the link that because of your actions this happened. Before Tamyeez, they can't, in a sense, see that because I hit him, so he hit me back. Sometimes they come to you, they complain, oh, he hit me. Then you ask why? Because I kicked him. And then so you complain because you. I've had primary school, ya Allah, 9 years old. 9 years old, come, teacher. I was from Ishmael, Isha come benda. Teacher, don't know who hit me. And I was like, why you hit him? Because we were playing fighting. Of course, you were playing fighting, hit each other lah. Yeah, we were playing fighting. Then he hit me. Yeah, the game is called fighting. Kids tak masuk akal tau.
So if like don't complain about name calling, but should we correct the
Yes, behind it.
or behind the one that's correct?
Because name calling has no place in Islam. Right? Islam, there is no place for name calling in Islam. Right? A Muslim does not call others names. Right? But so you see that there are two parties here. There's the wrongdoer, right? And then there is the one who is being wronged. Right? The victim. But the victim, if you feed, his victimization of himself, then he's going to breed someone who is very dependent, very, what do you call it? What's the word? They call kids nowadays. See, the word left my mind. Very demanding of their rights. Entitled, yes. Those with entitlement, the generation Y, right? What do you call it? I don't know. Basically, the entitled child, the self-entitled child. Right? That is his behavior he's talking about. This is that time they really start talking about it. Right? That behavior of self-entitlement, the behavior of I am always right, I am never wrong. Right? Somebody else did wrong to me. Right? No. Right? So what you're trading in them is don't cry, don't complain, and don't get somebody else to help you get your way. Right? This is not the way. Right? But what do? Reflect on what you did. Right? Don't do it again. Right? Then you will avoid it. Right? So same thing, and when it comes to marriage, same thing in marriage. Right? My mother-in-law, the first year of marriage, she told me, learn your husband's buttons. Learn his buttons, all his buttons. Learn all the buttons and then don't press them. Right? So the first year of marriage is when you accidentally stumble about all the buttons. Right? And all the fights happen. The first year. Right? Learn them. She says, learn these buttons. And I always remember what she said to me. Right? So then thereafter, avoid all the buttons. Right? So don't be a fool thinking that, you shouldn't be angry about these kind of things. It's ridiculous. But that's his button. He has that button. Right? It makes him angry about that thing. Don't press it lah. Why must you keep pressing it? Right? So for me, the main thing about my husband that he gets angry about things. That for me, why are you angry about this? But I know that's his character. Right? So what do? Avoid it. Avoid it all around. Avoid ever going near what I know will make him angry. And from there, you preserve the marriage. You preserve it. Right? It's called being wise. It's called being wise. Right? Your child, teach them that. Teach them that. Your brother has this kind of character. Why do you have to annoy him that way? That kind of thing. You know your sister. You know all of these things. Don't do them. And that is how you create a beautiful human being. Right? Who sees what harms other people because they have their characters, and then he tries his best to tiptoe around them. Right? So that you gain the love of all those who are around you. Right? And you are beloved to those who are around you. Right? فَعَادَةُ الشُّجْعَانِ أَلَّا يَذْكُرُوا كُلَّ الَّذِي جَرَى لَهُمْ بَلْ يَسْبِرُوا. Right? And have it in themselves. Right? Train in them. At the age of Tamyeez, train in them. Right? To not report everything that happens to them. Don't it be a very good life skill. Very good life skill. But be patient in yourself. Allah is enough. Right? Be patient in yourself. Allah is enough as someone to handle. And if you can say every day, right, ufawwidu amri ila Allah, inna Allaha basirun bil ibad. Right, ufawwidu amri فوض أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد. Right, you can see that. Oh no. Inna Allah basirun bil ibad. I entrust all my matters. I entrust to follow them. I entrust my matters to Allah. For surely Allah sees His servants. If you can teach them at this age to say this, whenever they complain, say this. I entrust the matter to Allah. Allah sees His servants. Right. So then, as they grow older and become adults, right, and when people, and you will come into life. And life, you will have backbiters for sure. You will have haters for sure. You will have, people who are jealous for sure. Right? This is life. Right? They come. What do? Ufawidu amri in Allah. Right? Allah knows I do what is good, and I am beloved and pleasing to everybody else. People want to slander. People want to backbite. They want to have envy. They want to whatsoever. Is ibad. Ibad. I'm going to here. B. So is that word at the end? Ibad. Bil. Ibad. Right, so you're teaching them at age of 7 life skills. Life skills, they will attain happiness. It is emotional preservation. Right, they will attain happiness if you teach them how to handle bad behavior around them or calamity around them. So if anybody scolds them, what do? First and foremost, what's your fault? Like, what is your fault? Secondly, don't cry. Right, it doesn't help you to cry. Right, cry tears only for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right, cry over your own sins. Right, don't cry because somebody else, said, called you a pig or something like that. Doesn't matter, don't cry. Right, third thing, right, do not always use other people to get your way. Right, don't. That's a very bad habit to get other the way. Fourth thing, don't find the need to always say to other people what has happened to you. Complain. But adults at this age, and it's a very big aib, man. It's a very big fault, a flaw, right, for a person, woman or a man, right, to keep talking about their spouse, right, and the flaws of their spouse to somebody else. It's a flaw. Right? I'm not saying, that if you're being abused, you keep it secret. If you're being abused and you need help, go and find help. That is different, right? But there are women, right, or men who just, oh, my husband did this, my husband did that, my husband, the entire list of complaints about the husband to all their friends. Right? Or even if it's to one friend. Why? Why must you do that? Right? Your husband's situation is his secret with you. Right? They see him in the house. Do you go around and tell everybody about your husband and what he has done? Right? SubhanAllah, that is of the greatest sins. The greatest, kabair, big sin. Right? To go around and inform everybody about your household matters. Right? It's a great sin. Right? So, وَكُلَّ الَّذِي جَرَى لَهُمْ بَلْ يَصْبِرُوا. So as I mentioned in the first class, this one has to be in us. We have to be like that. Right? If you expect your children to be happy, right, and not be like this. Right? And then he says here, right, so right, so إذا ضرب المعلم ألا يكثر السياحة ولا يشتفع بأحد بل يصبر. Right, so teach them patience. Okay. At the same time, right, when this has happened, if you find that what the adult did was not right, then separately, privately, you speak to the adult. Right, and if you want, you can tell the adult that next time, if my child does misbehave, right, direct him to me. I will discipline him. And you don't discipline him. If you can say it to them lah. But if not, just give your feedback to the adult without letting your child know about it. Right? Because now we have children who criticize teachers. Right? Because the parents themselves criticize the teachers in front of the child. So don't do that. Right? So adult matters by yourselves. Right? Don't have a child involved. The child, teach them respect. That is your uncle, that is your auntie, right? That is your teacher. Right? Respect them. Right? They got upset, I respect them. If they tell to do something, obey them. Right? Because they are older than you. Right? And then he says here, right, وَلَا يَشْتَفِعُ بِأَحَدٍ بَلْ يَصْبِرُ وَيَذْكُرُ لَهُ أَنَّ ذَلِكَ دَأَبٌ الشُّجَعَانِ والرجال وأن كثرة السياح دأب المماليك والنسوان. Right, so not to scream and shout and cry and complain. These are all not good traits. These are all not good traits. But a human being, and my teacher, she was saying that the believer, right, your heart is like a rock. Your heart is firm. Right? You're not perturbed by anything else, by anything. So at this age, you're beginning to train the emotional health of a child. You're training the emotional health, right? Focusing, to be content and to have patience with whatever happens to you. But it's training, so it will happen throughout their years as they grow older. Right, and then he says here, وفضائل تعلم القرآن من الكتاب والسنة لا يضبطها عد ولا يحصرها حد وكذا دوام درسه وملازمته ليلا ونهارا وهو أفضل الأذكار. Right, he says that, and the virtue or the merit of learning Quran and Hadith for your children, nothing is like it. You cannot compare. Nothing is like it. Right, so have a time for the morning and evening is important on you if you want them to grow up well. Right, and focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala morning and evening. Quran, Hadith, right, that they are holding on. There is nothing that is better than these two. Right, and then he says, وَقَدْ جَمَعَ Ibn Nawawi قَدْسَهُ روحه right, من فضائل آداب جملة في كتاب تبيان في آداب حملة القرآن. Right, and if you want to know further about how to handle the Quran with your children, you can refer to Imam Nawawi's book, right, the people who carry the Quran. Imam Nawawi has a book written about this matter, this issue. Alright. Okay. So at this point, any questions now about Tamyeez? Alright, about Tamyeez.
I think we want to spend part of our day reading Quran for ourselves. And in doing that, our children are somewhat neglected. Although they hear, but they're just playing unattended. So sometimes I feel bad, like, should I cut short my reading because my child wants me? So it's difficult to find that balance.
If your child is like, how old?
2 and 1.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, depending lah which group they're on. So 2 and 1, when they're having their naps, we also having a nap, kan? Yeah, I know. I know lah. I mean, mothers.
To benefit from
Yeah.
observing an adult reading in the house. There's this conflicting feeling that, I should be doing something with them. They are not actively engaged.
If you can, because they're 2 and 1, they're still so small, kan? Right, of course, you do read your Quran. Right, give them something to engage, like blogs, apa, drawing, jonting, apa, anything lah. Right, they're 2 and 1. Whatever would engage. Don't feel guilty about it, right? But also, if you want the barakah, you want the berkat for them to hear the Quran, right? So have a portion, maybe just 5 minutes, whatever. Because small kids, they can't handle so long. Right, 5 minutes, you read the Quran. The rest of your Quran reading, you do it when they are asleep, right? Or you do it when they are basically, in your own time lah. In the morning or in the night, whatever lah. Right, of course, for young children, if you can, make them sleep by 7. Right, for young children, by 7 go to bed. Then you have a lot of time for yourself, right? But if you can lah, for young children below the age of 3, 4, right, by 7 or 8 o'clock, please sleep. Right, sleep. My mother, all 7 of us, by 8, the younger ones all to bed. By 9, everybody. Then she has all her time in the world to do whatever she wants to do.
How about, like, when we want to go Tarawih or Qiyam, is it necessary for mothers with young children to please Allah in such a way? Because we have to bring our children.
So that one, we actually asked our teachers, right, about that. So she said that, she said that for very young children, because very young children, they won't remember a lot of things, right? What you're doing is all blessings. It's all blessings. You're not saying anything. It's all blessings. But very young children, they get agitated with long, staying there for so long or doing anything. So if young children before the age of Tamyeez especially, right, it's best that you do it in your own homes. They stay in your own homes and do it in your homes, and you niyat the berkat of the masjid onto your home. Because if you could, you would go, right? But then if your child will make noise, your child will, create some sort of, record in the mosque, that is actually on you not to go, because you're going to be bothering those who are at the mosque. Right? And there is a hadith whereby Rasulullah SAW did say that keep your children and your crazy people, the majanin, I mean those who are insane, away from the mosques. Right? Meaning that the young children who they can't tell the adab of the mosque, they don't know. If you can train them, then good. If you can train them, then you can bring them. Right? But if you cannot train them, right, and they are wild, it's better that you keep them home, right, until they're old enough to be trained and understand. Then you bring them to the mosque, right? If it's separate, alhamdulillah. Then alhamdulillah. Then because the issue is that you don't bother the people who go to the mosque for sanctuary, for solitude, and as a sanctuary for peace. So if it's dedicated for mothers, then alhamdulillah, then you can use it. Basically it's for you not to intrude into the rights of the people who go to the mosque. Because those who go to the mosque, they have rights. And their rights is that the mosque is kept clean. The right of the people who go to the mosque, the mosque is kept clean. The right that the mosque is kept quiet. I mean silence, for them to contemplate with the Quran. Right? So if you're going to violate these rights, then you need to stay away. Right? But if you can be sure that the rights are not being violated, for example, they have a playroom somewhere else, then good enough. Right? If you know your child will keep quiet. And some children, even at the age of 3, they are very quiet. They sit there, colour. Right? So alhamdulillah, can. Right? But if you know your child cannot sit down for a moment, run around, go crazy, right? That is actually, it can. Some of the scholars I've asked before, they can say it does border on haram for you to do so, because you know your child is not someone that can control himself, right? So then you hold it until they're 7, because 7 is the age actually. 7, when you bring them, they remember more, right? And all of this will have effects on them. But then, not to prevent yourself from the barakat of the mosque, you niyat the mosque in your house. You niyat that, if I could, I would have gone, but my child, he does not sit still, he runs around and he screams his head off wherever I go, right? So, and everybody has their lot. So I'm never saying that, it's like when you see mothers with children who are wild, you don't judge them, because they are some of them are born that way. They're just very wild, and some are just very hudu, they're very quiet and very tranquil, right? And depending on what Allah has given to your child, right? So, but if you know your child is somebody who cannot, they just can't do it, don't force it. Don't force it. Wait, have it. In Tarim, what we would do, because in Tarim, however, Noor herself does not allow children to be brought into the Zahra Musalla. Is mamnu, it's forbidden. In Tarim, children below the age of 7 are not allowed in the Musalla. They're not allowed. Right? Why? It is a flat out rule. Why? Right? Because there are a lot of them the parents bring their kids there, and the kids go wild, right, in the Musalla. Right? And she said that this is not a place, this is not a playground. Right, so while there are parents where the kids are quiet, but to put a blanket rule, so nobody can argue, oh, my child is quiet and then child is not quiet, that kind of thing. She has a blanket rule, no children in the musalla at all, in Ramadan, out of Ramadan at all, below age of 7. And most of the mosques in Tarim are also the same way, because the Arab kids are, they have like a lot of energy. So they're very wild. Arab kids are very, very wild. So you let them in, they bring their shoes in, they walk around, they pull the Quran, they start pulling out the pages. Right, so there's a rule, no kids. But in Singapore, they allow. And in fact, I wrote a post before on my Facebook about the adab in the mosque. Right, because some parents think that, okay, it is blessing. Right, but with blessing, there is etiquette. If you don't follow the etiquette of blessings, the blessings will not be there. Right, so that, for example, my teacher was here, I was speaking to one of my friends that everybody wants the ustazah or the hababah to come to their house, because berkat, blessing. But it is not of blessing, right, for you to demand that they come. It's not, because it's bad adab.
This applies the same to even Masjidil Haram and Masjidil
Yeah, it applies the same, right? Because it is basically you are bothering, right, the people in there, right? So blessing comes with etiquette, right? If without the etiquette, the blessing is gone. Right, so I wrote a post once on my Facebook, because my sister-in-law kept complaining to me. She was saying that parents think by bringing your kids to the mosque, right, it is a blessing, right? But then you don't be an irresponsible parent. You give them snacks, you throw snacks all over the place, right? Litter the mosque, right? Roll on the floor, on the carpet, make noise, shout, play racing in the mosque, right? No, that's not called bring my child to the mosque and for the blessings. No. In fact, when you do that, you are in fact you could be you could basically be undermining their love for the mosque, right? Because they see the mosque as a playground, right? So there's no respect for the mosque. So if you want to bring your child to the mosque, you must explain to them, in the mosque we are quiet. We don't talk in loud voices in the mosque. In the mosque, we don't lie on the floor and roll around. Right? In the mosque, no racing. In the mosque, if you want to eat outside the musalla, not in. So the adab of the mosque, this basically you're doing them a favor. I said this favor, if you don't teach them the adabs of a mosque, then they will treat the mosque as the other playground that they go to. Right? So it's important for parents to understand. You want to bring your kids to the mosque, train them. If you can't train them, then not now. Until you can train them, then bring them to the mosque. Right? For babies, then it's fine now. They stay with them. Right? But if they are crying a lot, then also think twice. Right? Think twice. Right? I know it's like difficult answer, right? But it's what we ask also. We ask, right? And all of them are like that. Right? Hababa all mentioned. Yeah, it's a privilege. And now the mosque, alhamdulillah, if the mosque is providing a service, then it's good. I know Masjid Kampung Siglap does have a service for child minding. That's good on the mosque part. Right? But if you're going to a mosque where there is no service, right, and your child is not well behaved. So two conditions lah, Right? If he's well behaved, then halas, he's well behaved. If not well behaved, then wait lah. Right? Inshallah, Allah will bless you. He will give you according to your intentions. He knows that you desire to go and qiyam and tarawih and whatsoever, but you have this child with you and he's creating a record and nobody else can do after the child. Right? And if mothers can come together, if you are one lah. Like in Tarim, we did that. Right? Mothers, right? So those who are on their menses, right? Everybody else will drop their kid off with you. So you allow other mothers to go to the mosque without their children who can't be handled in the mosque. So they can go to the mosque and you look after the child because you're on your menses. Right? It's a good idea. We used to do it in Tarim. Because in Tarim, like Darul Muslim on the men's side, they will only open up some parts in the year. Right? When the men go out to Nabi Allahhood, then Darul Mustafa is open for the women. So everybody wants to pray there. Right? But they don't allow kids at all. No kids below the age of 7 at all. Even if they are quiet, nothing. Right? So what the mothers do will be that okay, anybody who can't pray at that time, we become the babysitters. And we get the pahala lah. We get the reward also because let other mothers go and pray. We look after the child. Right? So I used to do that also. When I have no children, I would offer my house because it's near the mosque. Right? So you can come, drop your children, an hour, 2 hours, you can go and pray. Right? Then come back and get your children. So I will always be here having activities with them lah. Right? It's a good idea. I mean, basically there are ways, but we need to stand up and just form together. So in your own communities, form together. Yeah, we all live where? I mean, if you live nearby or whatever, right? Or those who live near mosques, like if you want to offer your house, come my house, like 10 people come, 20 people come. Then you're having one big headache. But you get the pahala because you allow the mother to actually go. Right? It's a good idea. Amongst cousins, amongst friends, right? You can do it. Right? Amongst women. Right. Okay. So, actually I wanted to go on a bit more. But then, see her. Right. So right now, at the age of Tamyeez, he's going to go a lot into intellectual development. Right? Remember in the first part, right, before 0 to 7, there is a lot of talk about emotional development, right, of the child, right, akidah and emotions, right, also physical development because they are growing up, right, now, right, and also spiritual development. Now there's going to be a lot of talk about intellectual development, right, and the preservation of the love to learn, right. So next week we'll talk about the need for them to play, right, the need for them not to, too much studying will cause the heart to die, right. The scholars say that too much study will cause the heart to die. Right, so pay attention. If you see your child, especially now we have suicide rates and whatsoever going on in schools, right? Don't pressure your child so much. Right, see what is needed. What is important, and have a focus in your life. What is important? Important that you are a good person. That's important to me. Right, that you try your best is important to me. And however you fare out doesn't matter to me. I mean, it's however you do is good. Alhamdulillah. Right, but try your best for Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. Right, and inshallah Allah will give you all that is good. Right, so in a sense, don't be so whatever onto your children. And if you see signs of stress on them, right? Be able to help them manage the stress. Right? Inshallah next week he will talk about it. Right, about this. Tamyeez is getting more complicated. We thought 0 to 7 was complicated. After 7 is even more complicated. Because a lot of things enter the picture. Like after 7 and then at Baligh, khalas, they are supposed to be able to handle life themselves. Supposed to. Right, but we still hold them by the hand until 21. At 21 then they go. Inshallah. Sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. الفاتحة نرزقنا لمن لا فما قبول وحسن التعليم وتدار الهدى وسلم النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وللمعلمين مشايخنا لنا وإلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم الفاتحة بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر